Okay, here we go. So once again, welcome and thank you for joining Praxio AI Tax Assistant webinar. I'm William Young, and joined with me is Ken Wong, who's the Tax AI lead. Just a couple of things before we get started. So we'll be running 2 polls today. So in order to access the polls, or to do the voting on the polls, I will share my screen and show how we can do that. So let's do that. What you'll see is these kind of meeting tools at the bottom. If you click that, you will be able to see poll, and when we run a poll live, it will turn blue. And then also, if you wanted to put in your questions for today, there's Q&A here, and you can start by ask a question. And if you want to ask anonymously, you can press that, and you can type in your questions here. We'll do the Q&A towards the end of today's webinar. And so, yeah, let's get started. All right. So I guess the question is, the first thing we want to cover is, why did we build Praxio AI Tax Assistant? As I said, look, I'm an accountant by background. I was a tax advisor for 10 years. And, you know, during the last 10 years, I did a lot of volunteering at CP Australia and talked to a lot of practitioners. And a lot of them were just telling me about, you know, their pain points, their challenges in running a tax practice, you know, today. And as part of developing this product, we also interviewed 25 accounting firms and ran a survey to really understand, you know, what the current accounting firms are feeling. Right? And some real main points came out of our interviews, which, you know, included, you know, tax law is very, very complicated. It's always being updated and changing, so it's very hard to kind of stay ahead and be current and stay current. So it's pretty tough. The second one people tell us is that doing research takes a lot of time. When they get a client's, you know, scenario, client's questions might be getting more and more complex. It takes a lot of time to research, and also making sure that they find credible sources, because on the internet, a lot of people, you know, use Google and use other mediums, but sometimes they're not sure where the information comes from. The third thing that was really important to us also was people telling us that even after they've done the research, to write up the client advice or the communications sometimes takes quite a while. It can take anywhere from 10 minutes to kind of half an hour or more, just to write that in more simple English or, you know, client-friendly style. That takes a lot of time. The other thing that people tell us a lot about is about staff shortages, and that, you know, with more compliance, more complexity, training staff is becoming more and more difficult, and also reviewing work becomes sometimes a bit of a bottleneck, because sometimes the knowledge is also scattered, it's not all in one place. So all of this makes managing a practice more and more difficult. And all that leads to kind of what we call kind of pressure on fees. You know, fees are getting tighter, expectations from clients are getting more, but, you know, there's more work to do, more compliance and more in order to service, and that really kind of squeezes, you know, the amount of time we have practitioners have on job, and also their profitability. So all of this kind of really is what we kind of thought about and what came out of all of our research, which led us to think about developing a product for tax practitioners. So, you know, just as a bit of background, we started this process or this journey probably a year ago now. So it was about September, October last year that we started this journey. We spent kind of 3 to 6 months kind of really understanding, building that, building the concept. And then kind of from that point in time, then we started to actually do the development, which also then took a bit of time. We went through kind of beta testing. So we had a number of people test it for us, including tax advisors, accounting firms, small to large. And then we then fine-tuned it, and we launched the product last month. So on 18th of August, we've launched it. And, you know, we've been very lucky to have quite a few people trialing it, and some people turning to pay subscribers, which we'll talk about a little bit in a moment. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to run a poll to kind of see what takes the most time out of your day in dealing with client queries. So if you now go to the kind of tools and go to the dots, you should see in the poll a blue button. If you click on that, the first poll is about what takes the most time out of your day in dealing with client queries. Is it research and looking for laws and regulation? Is it drafting research and file notes that we want to keep? Is it writing the client communication? Or is it the quality assurance checks, having it reviewed and having it come back and forth? Like, yeah, I'll just give a couple of minutes for people to do the vote. So at the moment, the highest one so far is research and looking for laws and regulation, followed by writing client communications is the second highest at the moment. I'll just give it a couple more minutes to see if anyone else voting. So, while we're waiting for the results to come in, so with the research that we did and really understanding and we are really client-led in terms of the way that we built the product, and we want to listen to all of the issues that people were telling us, especially things like, for example, we built in our system ability for our system to ask questions to the user, and that was off the back of feedback from accounting firms saying that sometimes they give the question to colleagues or staff or juniors to research, and sometimes juniors, as part of their training, they probably need to understand what questions to ask or what other issues might come out of the initial question. So by the system prompting them with some questions, that they can learn and think more. So that we built that in the system of feedback. So yes, okay, so I'll close the poll now. Yes, so is research and looking for laws and regulation is the highest, followed by the second is writing client communications. So that's really cool. So I really want to talk a little bit through our guiding principles in terms of how we design the product. And our guiding principles comes from both accounting profession industry standards or requirements, as well as kind of IT ethics and ethics of AI. So the first one really is about accountability. So from our perspective, the accountant or the tax professional is the one that's accountable. So our product is built as a research tool, but it is the accountant that makes the decision, exercise their professional judgments in terms of what they advise or deliver to their clients. As I said, our product is built specifically and only for tax practitioners and public accountants. We don't release it for general public use, and our terms and conditions state that it is only for use by professionals, because we're here to develop something to help accounting practices. So on the back of that, our outputs only go to the user, i.e. the tax practitioner. It would never go directly to the client. So number one. The second one that's really important is credible sources. So our system only uses federal legislation, as well as only uses ATO legal database or ATO guidance and ruling. So it doesn't take anything from someone's blog. It doesn't search widely on the internet and gather information from unknown sources. The other thing that's very important to us is this human in the loop element. So we always want that whatever output comes from our system is driven by a human. And that's why our product is built with the user does the initial information or prompt scenario. It also allows the user to re-prompt or re-input more information, ask questions, clarify, and the system also will prompt some questions to help engage with the user or the human to ensure that it's always the human that is giving the information, and it iterates from human judgment. Next thing, of course, that's very important is always privacy and security, because we're obviously dealing with client information and some sensitive scenarios. Ken will later talk a bit more about how we build our system with that in mind, and security and privacy later on in the session. The next thing that's very important for accountants is governance and audit trail. So we built a system so that the user can always see their history of the chats or the scenarios that they have put in, it also allows for exporting kind of research or work papers that you can use as a file note, and so that you can have an audit trail, and it's also easier for kind of QA review. And last but not least, we always think about how can our product help with accounting practices with more efficiency and therefore more profitability, and that is kind of, thinking about how we can support streamline research, help with drafting, client communication, how we can help to reduce rework, speed up turnaround time so that we can free up the accountant's time to really bring higher value advice and support their clients better, which hopefully generates more revenue and higher profits. So that's kind of our guiding principles, how we build the product. Next, I guess, is demo time. So what I'll do is I'll jump to a demo, and so you can see how it works. Just give me a moment while I share my screen on this side. Okay, so hopefully it would have jumped to this now. Okay, so if you go onto our website and want to kind of sign up a trial, so you can go to our website, which is www.praxio-ai.com.au, and you can press start free trial, and it'll go to the sign up page. Okay, so I pre-filled it to save time. So I pre-filled it. So you put in your name, the email address of your firm, and that's important because we need to verify the email. And so the future, when we send the research, it goes to your email. So this needs to be verified later. You put in phone number and your company name. And ABN is important because we do background checks on the ABN to ensure that A, it is a valid business, and B, we try to check whether it's an accounting firm or not by kind of understanding who the ABN holder is. And hopefully we can create the trial. Okay, so once you've done that, it will say that please check your inbox to verify your email. If you don't verify your email, what I'll do is I'll show you what happens before and after. So we save this and we sign in. If you don't verify your email, some of the boxes won't show later. So what you'll see hopefully is, yep, so it's a welcome email plus it will say verify your email address. So you just have to press this button and verify it. And this is part of our security features to make sure that the system only sends email to, the email that you want, and it's a verified one, and it's, yeah. So, okay, so that's done. So I'm going to start with the first kind of question. I'm going to make it a really simple one. So first one is, I'm going to ask something very simple like, so you enter your scenario here. So I'm going to ask a simple one. Client has taxable income of 200,000 for the 2006 financial year. What's tax payable? Here's the send instruction prompt. So you press this and it will send it. What I'll do while we're waiting is I'll talk a bit about how to prompt better prompting techniques, and that's important, probably not for our product, but for if you're using other language models. So the first I want to talk about while waiting is called persona. So persona is when you say if you're using ChatGPT or Claude, you tell the large language model to think like a certain person, or for example, you say you're acting as an advisor, or for example, if you're doing a marketing, you say, okay, act as a marketing and branding consultant. For our system, you don't need to do that because we've developed a product to already be trained and think like a tax advisor. But if you're so that it already understands that is the role that it's taking on. But if you're doing it in other large language models, it always helps to let the agent or large language model know what persona you're taking. So that took 25 seconds. And so what it outputs is this is the research section, which is what we call the detailed research section. And it comes up with what's the summary. It comes up with what the legislation and the guidances are from the ATO. It does an analysis. And on this one, it's calculated the tax payable based on the tax rate. It's broken it down to tell you what it is per band. And then it's also added the Medicare levy on here as well. Okay. So it gives you this, and then in the bottom here, it will have, you can click this link and it will go straight to the legislation. Or if it's got like an ATO emblem, you can click it and it will then load up the ATO page of where it goes to. So you can see exactly where the information came from for your kind of audit purposes and checking and research. It also has a box here which asks questions. So this is the one where we're saying that the system will think about, you know, does it need more information, or can it ask some questions that will help to refine the research? And I'll demonstrate this in the next scenario. And then after that, this is the box for reprompting. So you can add in more instructions here. And then this button here is what pulls up the client draft. So you can see here, you can edit it here. So you can say, "Dear Mr. Smith, or you can change as you need to. And then after that, what you can do is you can say, I want to send this. You can send just the client advice, or you can send the client advice, including the research and citations. So I'm going to do that. And then it says it's sent. So hopefully if I go back to my email, it's already arrived in my inbox. So I can then go into my inbox and say, oh, so here's the client advice summary. I can then copy and paste this into a fresh email and send it to my client. So in the client advice, the template will do is it'll come up with a background. It will talk about the information and say that, you know, it's only accurate based on the information above. It will give a summary of what the answer is, and then you'll have a summary of its findings. So it's up to the accountant or the user to add on or delete if they think it's too much information or too little. And we always have a risk section and also any recommended action and steps so that the accountant can check it, look at it, and make sure they're comfortable before I send it to the client. And also has a scope and limitation. Then you can add your name here and out it goes. It also has the research. So this is the long form research with all the citations and the legislation sections so that you can use that as a file note. So that's the first thing. So what I'll do, that's the first scenario. So I'll just quickly move on to the next scenario. So so once you refresh, the old scenario comes up here. So if you need to go back to it, you can click and go back to it and you can keep working on it. So sometimes if you say, oh, I need to ask my client some questions to come back, you can always come back to it. Or here's the one. So I'm going to ask a question. What are common tax deductions? So this is a bit longer one. What are the common tax deduction I can claim as an individual tax return? I get a salary, I get dividend income, and I get some trust distribution from a family trust. So while we're waiting, I want to talk about the next prompt suggestion or prompt tip, which is talking about context and be specific. So when you're instructing a large language model, it's good to, as I said, give it a persona and then give it some details. What are some of the background? what are some of the information and context that you want to give it so you can understand a bit better what you're looking for, and you can be specific as well. And sometimes it might look like a long paragraph, but you can also write it in bullet points, and I'll go through that in a moment. All right, so this one's done. It took 38 seconds. So once again, it's come up with the research, it's come up with all the citations and things that you clickable links. And here it's ask questions. So I'm going to answer some of these questions. So you say, okay, 1, are you a tax resident? Let's go yes. You can just purely do this. 2, overseas, no. 3, I don't know. 4, are you claiming work car expenses? Oh, that's an interesting one. Not sure, but I'll add something on in a moment. And 5, yes, I do. And then 6, I'll say no. But what I'll do also is, instead of just answering a question, I'm also going to add in some extra information that I just thought of now. So, I thought of, I also pay some personal subscriptions, those tax deductible, and also drive my car sometimes to look at a property for the family trust. Are these expenses deductible? So now I've added in my reprompting and my human element to ask questions and answer questions. We simply send a reprompt, and it will start researching again. But what the system will do is it will remember the information you gave it before, it will remember the previous research, and then it will add the new information you've given to it before it comes up with the next reiteration of the research. So hopefully it won't take too long. While we're there, I'll talk about another tip. So another tip would be also to be specific to the LLM in terms of what output you're looking for. Are you looking for bullet point output? Are you looking for it to create a table? Or are you looking for it in some other method of what output you want? Obviously, for our system, you don't need to do that because we've already curated the output of how it should come out. And so you don't need to do it in our system. So you can see in this scenario, it is now used the information I put in. So you'll see here, it will say that here's the additional information that was put in. And yes, I've incorporated into the new advice or new research. So you'll see here the new research, and it'll talk about trust distribution and trust expenses. So you say that, expenses incurred are already netted off. So in essence, your car expense of visiting, you're a beneficiary only, and therefore your car expenses shouldn't be tax deductible for the individual. It'll talk about the professional subscription. It's added that in. And then it also gives you kind of a bit of advice about, well, if you've got car expenses, maybe it should be, claimed in the trust, for example. It'll add in other things that you could potentially. It also looks at what risks, if you do try to claim the car expenses, what might happen, and it gives its recommendation. It also has the previous research on the bottom here as well. So then you always can see what was the new research, what was the old research, citations are all updated. And once again, if you then go, it would update the client advice. You can once again go in here, change it to what you would like, and then send it to yourself once again. So this is a bit more detailed one and a little bit different you can add in. I'm going to try another one, which is a bit more complicated one, because when we look at the scenarios that we put into our system so far, a lot of the questions were around capital gains. So I'm going to key in a even more complicated scenario around capital gain. But this time, what I've done is I'll put them in bullet point form. So put a bullet point form makes it more concise, easy to understand, and it's also quicker to do the research. So I've put here, bought a house of 500,000, lived in it 3 years, moved out for 5 years, moved back in, and then sold it. What are the capital gains tax implications? So I've actually asked it exactly what I'm looking for. So we'll send this. While we're waiting, I'll talk about another tip on using AI. And the next one really is about what we call review and iterate. Because I think for most ChatGPT or other large language models, you can't assume that the first time the answer comes out is the correct one or is what you're looking for. So it's very important to review what comes out and then re-instruct the large language model. You must say, I don't like this, I like this, or you got this wrong, you got that right. I want to change it. I want you to add in these elements, now redo it again. So using that reiterative approach is very important for us as accountants to ensure that we're accountable and we're the ones in control. Okay, so this one's come up now already, and it's talking about the CGT implications. It talks about the absence rule and, in essence, application of section 118-145, which essentially means that the CGT is exempt for the whole holding period, provided you did not treat another property as your main residence during that 5-year rental period. It then once again comes here and asks you questions. For example, did you treat another property as your main residence during that 5 years? Because if you did, then you can't claim two at the same time. It also kind of asks things about whether it was rented out for the whole period, whether you made any significant capital improvements, and whether you're a Australian resident. So once again, you can answer these questions, or if the questions prompt you to give different information, you can key in the information and send it back for research. So once again, that's quite useful and powerful, and you can see that it does come up with some things that you need to be careful of, even if the preliminary research is that it is CGT exempt. Okay, gives you the recommendation. Yeah, so lastly, I'll just quickly do one on CGT, and this one, I've separated into kind of 3 different paragraphs. So it's talking about a property development. So the person owned the house, they demolished it, built 3 townhouses, and they subsequently moved into one of them, rented out the other 2, and then either sold or gifted it to their children. Is there any GST on the eventual sale or gifting? So you can set it up into paragraphs like that as well. So to give it little chunks. And that's also a useful thing when you're kind of using AI or using any of the large language model, is chunking them to make it easier. And what we do also is when we send a scenario, we build a database in a back end. It actually chunks the information as well, so it makes it more accurate and there's less hallucination or inaccuracy that comes through. I mean, the other thing I'll sort of mention is that we update our database and we refresh it like periodically every month or so. We will re-update everything so that everything's always current. So you see in this one, it took 24 seconds to come out. And obviously it will talk about whether it's new residential premises, and the amount of period that you need to. In this scenario, you've rented it out, so it means that it is no longer new residential premises. So it comes up with you shouldn't have any application for CGT on the eventual sale. It will ask you a series of questions once again, so we might prompt you to go back to your client and ask for more information, especially whether it's actually a business activity or not. So this is very useful, and some of our clients have mentioned this. So that's kind of high-level demo of how you can use our system. What are some ways that you can prompt it, and in terms of how you can utilize, human in the loop, putting in more information, improving your research, and also how the system can save you time in drafting your client emails, which you can then, send to yourself, review it, and then send it out to your clients. So with that, what I'll do is I'll jump back to the demo. please feel free to keep asking your questions and send them through the Q&A. We'll answer them later. So that's our demo. So just want to quickly go through kind of what firms are saying at the moment. So we've been out in market 1.5 months now, beta testing. So people really like the fact that it asks smart questions. So I like it asks smart question. Helps you to think about issues you may have missed. Research is a lot quicker. Praxio helps to draft a client advice. So it becomes a kind of huge time saver, helps increase profits. And this is another good one. It's a reliable way to validate what we were already thinking. So a lot of accountant and firms have said, look, we have an idea what the answer should be, but I just want to validate and get that confirmation. And so our system's been very, very good for that. And then the last one really just wraps it up, saying it gives a lot of confidence, helps them with complex areas, and it helps them to kind of, serve their clients better. So that's cool. The next, I want to just do another quick poll, really about, because we spend a lot of time about ethics and AI and what worries accountants on using AI. So if you go to your tools again, and hopefully another poll would have launched, and this poll is asking what worries you most about using AI. Is it inaccuracy or hallucination? Is it not knowing accountability? Is it the data privacy and confidentialities? Is it making sure you comply with compliance standards regulation, or is it cost? So I'll give a few minutes. Ken, have you done the end trial?
Yes, I have.
Thank you. Yeah, so interestingly, so far, the highest vote is on accuracy and hallucinations. So people are very worried about it being incorrect and hallucinate. So in that respect, Kim will talk about how we built our system to kind of minimize that risk. And then the other one that's come up quite high is data privacy, confidentiality / security. So I think with that, I'll pass on to Ken to talk about these aspects.
Okay, thanks, Will. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to go into a bit more detail on the security and privacy aspect of our platform, because we heard right from the get-go that this is very important in terms of any tools, not just AI tools that are used by the profession. So we wanted to let you know that from the guiding principles, we made sure product and all the sub-processes or the vendors that we use in our tech stack, is aligned to ISO 27001 and also SOC 2 criteria. For those who are not that familiar with SOC 2, it's a more of a US-based standard, but specifically targeted to SaaS solutions, so the software. So it slightly contrasts to ISO 27001, which is more about risk management systems around data and security. Our payment platform is handled by level 1 global payment provider Stripe. We don't actually keep or hold any of the credit card information. That's all handled by Stripe. Data residency, we also make sure that our whole solution aligns with Australian privacy principles, in particular 8, which is a cross-border handling of information. And so what we've landed on is a regional hosting solution offered by top-tier hosting and cloud provider, so specifically AWS and Google Cloud. Data protection, because the tax scenario as well as the research and the responses go through multiple systems, all data that is communication between systems is taken place in an encrypted basis, both in transit as well as at rest, based on global standard encryption methodology. AI in particular, AI security, we ensure that none of the tax scenarios or the responses are used by the AI infrastructure for their training. However, we do have in our terms and privacy policy that it is a shared responsibility. While we do utmost to ensure that, like I said, training data does not go to those AI foundational model providers, we do state that users avoid putting in, tax file numbers and other PII information directly into the tax scenarios, or in answering those questions that were highlighted in the demo. Lastly, data minimization. This is something that is dear to my heart, is that we only store and collect information that is required to deliver the services. And if a user wishes to not use Praxio anymore, they have the right directly from the system to be able to delete their account, including all the chat and research history. But in line with sort of GDPR principles, that if that user wants a copy of that history before delete, then they just need to request it from us, and we'll arrange for that to be downloaded and shared with them. Will, next slide, please. Yeah, one level deeper, here are the lists of processes we use. I mentioned Google Cloud before as cloud provider, Render and Akame, also leading platform providers. Database storage is using Superbase, who uses AWS as the hosting provider. Firebase and Firestore for authentication and user records. And we also utilize Google Cloud Storage, as I mentioned before. Stripe, I mentioned already. In terms of our own productivity suite that we use within the team, we use the regular ones. Google Workspace, Microsoft 365, and we have a email server, which is through Loops. That's where the users, like you saw all the emails going to your the user's inbox. That's via a service called Loops. We use class-leading AI foundational reasoning models from OpenAI and Anthropic to do the reasoning. One thing to note is we focus very much on the accuracy and, in particular, consistency of the responses, and that, using global LLM providers, even at the the leading edge reasoning model, is not sufficient. We found that very early in our testing. So our actual product is built off a database of credible and up-to-date legislation, an ATO. We actually have to process that into a vector database that can then be inferred and reasoned from these models. So it's not just, the answers, we make sure that they're as consistent as possible. You may already know this, garbage in, garbage out. So we make sure that the database is refreshed and accurate and relevant so that these reasoning models can actually come out with the right answers. So that's a little bit detail on how our pipeline works in the back. All right. Well, next slide, please. Last slide is, we are always continually looking to see how we can improve the product. Even though we're only 6 weeks into launch, we're already talking about what other features we can add to the product, right? So this sort of illustration in terms of the typical sort of tax advisory workflow that we understand by speaking with users is that Praxio AI currently sits in the middle a little bit, where we articulate tax scenario, do the detailed research with clarifying questions, and users can refine research. Pretty much in the middle, right? So our hypothesis is that there's a lot more we can do probably to extend the platform, both on the left-hand side and the right-hand side, to try and even make that tax advisory piece workflow much more efficiently. For example, we've had a number of users ask us, hey, can you automatically feed Praxio's responses and drafts into our internal workplace document management system? So we are looking at integrations. Obviously, both out of Praxio and directly into workplace, their workplace platforms that they currently use. So with that, I'll hand over back to Will.
Thanks, Ken. Ken, can you check a message, please? Yeah, what's up? Okay, so before I move to Q&A, one of the most commonly asked questions we have is what is our pricing and plans and how it works. So as I said, for our product, you get a 7 days free trial. And then after there's a subscription model. At the moment, there are two kind of models in terms of subscription. It's either a monthly model, which is $79 a month, or it's an annual plan, which is kind of $869. Essentially, it's 11 months worth. And so that's the plan that we have at the moment. Someone has asked us, like, do we is this like an introductory rate and then it increases after 1 or 2 months? No, that's not what our plans are. So our plans are maybe once a year in July, August, we'll then kind of review based on CPI and based on whatnot. But this is the current pricing, and it'll stay until probably next July when we do our kind of revision or review. So yeah, so that's the QR code if you want to click in and go to a sign up page and try the free trial and try the product. If you need kind of demo or whatnot, hopefully today has been useful for you. With that, I will move to Q&A. I did have a question, and it's about should we enter in a client's details, right? And we always say, if you look at the scenarios that I put in, I didn't put in any names or any TFNs or anything. We still think that ideally, for security and purposes, that it's the information sanitized. So you write in there the client or he or she or I think that's still better. The other question we had is whether you can rename the chats. I think, Tim, we can. Is that right? You can rename the chats after because you might want to rename it to something else, because at the moment it auto generates a response. I mean, sorry, a scenario name.
Yeah, right now we have it to auto generate, but we'll take that on board in terms of allowing users to edit the title.
Yeah, because I think that's useful. I mean, to be fair, some people might not remember which client it's related to, or they want to put in some reference so they can go back and do that. So that's very good. Yep. Just going to see if there are any other questions. Is the annual plan per user or per firm? So look, it is per user. At the moment, it's per user, but we do have some firms that do share. I mean, it's okay. Some firms share, 2 people share 1 logon, for example. The only downside to that is that the email is only sent to the registered email. So if you've got 2 team members sharing 1 account, it will still go to 1 person's email. So that might be a little bit, but we are looking at enterprise versions later on. So we will be looking at that. Can this app lodge tax forms? No, so it doesn't lodge tax forms. At the moment, it is purely a research tool. We have had people mention about connecting, and that's what Ken had mentioned about in the future. People are thinking, can it connect to other apps that the practice already uses? And so we will be taking more feedback from users as we go along, and then we'll be trying to develop out a roadmap for it. Can we join monthly and then stop and pause and rejoin? Yes, you can do that, but I think you will lose the 7 days free trial because it remembers the email address. But you can stop it, and then maybe Christmas, New Year, you're not doing work or you're on holidays, and you come back and rejoin. That is possible. Number of users per firm. Yeah. So as I said, yeah, it's based on user. So yeah. So that's kind of where it's at. Cool. Just gonna see if there are any more questions. Ken, I can't get on the page.
That's okay. I can, if you allow me to share, I can.
Okay, can you share?
Sure.
Yeah, so just before you share, so I mean, lastly, we are having a special offer for participants of this webinar. So you can get an extra $79 off the annual plan, which expires, this offer will expire on the 15th of October. You just need to put in the promo code, which is Praxio Web 2025. So everyone on this call will get an email after this session with the webinar recording and also with the promo code. So don't worry if you haven't got it. And what I might do is get Ken to quickly show you where it is on the payment page so that you know where to put in the promo code and apply the promo code. So Ken, if you can join up. I do have one more question here. What happens to the information we leave on the site if we don't join after 7 days? So it will be deleted. So it treats it as you did delete your account if you don't join up after X number of days. And this is the same also if you go and delete your account. So let's say you use for a while and you decide, no, I don't want to use this anymore, you delete your account. What will happen is all your information and data will be deleted from the system. Ken, over to you.
Okay. I hope everyone can see my screen. So when you try and log in after your trial, you get a pop-up at the sign-in page to consider subscribing. Then hit OK, and then there's only one plan, one option really that's already pre-selected, but you can decide to choose monthly or yearly plan as an example. So let's just continue that, and then you may be familiar with this. This takes you to the Stripe portal essentially, and then you can put in the code. Web 2025. Make sure you hit apply, and then you will basically get that offer, and then you put in your credit card details and hit subscribe. You will receive a confirmation email to say that you've subscribed, and then from then on you just sign in and as per normal.
Thank you. Thanks, Ken. So with that, our webinar is coming to an end. So I'd really like to thank everybody for joining today. And we really hope that, Praxio AI Tax Assistant can be part of your workflow, part of your practice. And obviously, feel free to reach out to us to give us feedback, to give us suggestions on how we can improve the product. Because as I said, look, I'm an accountant by background. I'd been in tax practice for 10 years. I know how hard it is. And we really want to build, software or build a system that will help public practicing accountants and make their work more efficient and increase profitability and, with less workload. So with that, I wish everybody a great afternoon and thank you for joining. Thank you.
Thanks.